Hello everyone. Have you ever been late in completing certain tasks and had to work overtime to complete it within deadline? Or have you misscheduled tasks and completed those who had the longest deadline and absolutely missed those who had to be completed right away? So in order to minimize problem like this in your personal life or in a corporate setting, the techniques of scheduling are used. So today I'll be going through a number of techniques that you can use to schedule your tasks so that you always remain on time. This slide has been Certain portion of this slide has been copied from a Pearson books written by Willie on 2010. So, scheduling executes a company's strategic business plan and affects functional areas throughout the company. There are different type of department that depend upon the scheduled or the task scheduling we had organized. For instance, accounting relies on the number of turnover to compute its revenue projections. On the other hand, marketing uses that particular schedule to determine whether the company is using lead time for competitive advantage or not. Information systems maintain the scheduling database, and operations uses that particular schedule to maintain its priorities and to provide customer service by finishing jobs on time or sooner. If we do not have a particular schedule, we'll misorganize the tasks that we have at hand, and we may complete some tasks that has way much time remaining and completely forget the tasks that have to be done immediately. So how do we sequence jobs? First, we have to recognize which of the several jobs that should be scheduled first. There are various techniques available to do short-term planning of job based on available capacity and priorities. And there is also different type of priority rule. Among them, there are two priority rules that you must always keep in mind: local priority rule and global priority rule. Local priority rule only focuses on the tasks that you have had at a workstation. It completely ignores the possible tasks that are coming. On the other hand, global priority rule also have some provision made for the tasks that are in the pipeline and will be soon placed on your working station. So here are some commonly used priorities rule. First, as it is stated, first come, first serve. The tasks that come first is tackled first. Then there is the exact opposite of that, last come, first serve. The task that comes last is tackled first. Then there is the one with earliest due date. We complete the tasks that have the recent due date, and then so on. In shortest processing time or SPT rule, the task that can be completed quickly is done first. Exactly opposite, the longest processing time, in which tasks that needs larger amount of time to complete is tackled first. There are also other crucial ratios like critical ratio (CR), in which time until the due date is divided by processing time. If the critical ratio is greater than 1, we have ample time at hand, and that should not be our priority. If it is exactly equals to 1, it is right on schedule, and we should start to complete it right away. But if the critical ratio is less than 1, then it means that we are already late for the task, and we need to put that in the highest priority and even work overtime to complete it. Then there is slack for remaining operations, slack divided by arrow, in which we compute the slack time we have for the overall batch, and then we divide with the number of operations that are remaining. Okay, so let us start with an example of using shortest processing time and earliest due date rule. Here we have 65 type of job, with each having different job time and different due dates. So job times means the time we need to complete that particular job, and due date means the date we have to complete that job by. So as we can see, if you use the shortest processing time rule, we actually place the job which has the shortest processing time. In our case, EZT 101 has only 1 day for processing time, so that comes first. Then comes BRU 872, which has only 2 days processing time, and so on. But in the earliest due date rule, we give the priority to the job that has the earliest due date. For instance, AZK 111 has a due date in 3 days, so we'll be keeping that very first. Then EZD 101 has due date in 4 days, that will be given the second priority, and so on. So this is how you can prioritize job. So how to use priority rules? We have first to decide which priority rule we want to use. There are several that we can choose from. Then we list all the jobs that are waiting to be processed with their job time. Then use the priority rule to determine which job has highest priority, then second, then third, and so on. Now, once we have actually prioritized the job sequence, we need to also measure performance to keep us on track. See whether the used priority rule is applicable for us or not. For instance, job flow time measures the average flow time of the job, which measures responsiveness, meaning the less time we take to complete a job or to complete all the jobs in the sequence, more responsive we are. Then there is average number of job in the system measured as amount of work in process. This measures again responsiveness as well as work in process inventory. Third, we have make span. this is the time it takes to finish a batch of job, and this measures our efficiency. Then there is job lateness, whether the job is completed ahead of, on, or behind schedule. And finally, there is job tardiness. It means how long after the due date a job was completed. Then this also measures our due date performance and measures our lackingness. So as we can see, let's see an example. Job A finishes a job on 10 days, B on 13, C on 17, and D on 20. So if we calculate mean flow time, it is the sum of job flow times divided by number of jobs. So our mean flow time should be 15 days. Then average number of job in the system is sum of job flow times divided by days to complete the batch. 60 divided by 20 is, so we currently have 3 jobs in the systems, or the workstation at a time is completing 3 jobs or is working on 3 jobs. Then there is make span, is the length of time to complete a batch, meaning completion for job D minus the start time for job A. In this, as we can see, job A was started on day 0, right? It finished on 10th day after starting. Job B finished on 13th day after starting. C finishes on 17th day after starting, and D finishes on 20th day after starting. So our make span is D20 minus 0, or the start time of job A, finishing time of job D, and start time of job A. Now, lateness and tardiness can also be measured using thus priority rules, and the average tardiness is more relevant to customer service measurement. It shows how better our customer service is. For example, as we can see here, there are 4 jobs, and there are some jobs have been completed within deadline and some outside of the deadline. Here we can see job A has been completed 5 days before the deadline, job B 2 days before the deadline, while on the other hand C was completed 7 days after the deadline, and D was completed exactly on deadline. So our tardiness is measured by the number of days in which we are late divided by total number of jobs. And our tardiness is 1.75 times. Finally, in conclusion, what we can see is that different kind of environment need different scheduling techniques.